That's kind of what Dorset is for me, is the people and the place. I think everyone I've met that's from Dorset is so proud to be from Dorset. And then, you know, the coastline here is just incredible.
It's a quieter place, and I think historically people have bypassed Dorset, and so it's remained this little sort of enclave of itself as such. And so I think that probably sort of determines to a certain extent the pace of life down here.
And with that comes what is amazing produce. I think the produce of Dorset is massively overlooked. There's amazing shellfish, you know, pretty good wines, I think. You know, there's an amazing charcuterie now and sort of smokehouses, and someone's doing like Dorset snails and watercress.
Whether they're farmers or producers or sort of retailers, they're very sort of proud of the area, and they have a sort of a distinct sense of place.
And it's all people that are, you know, mostly from the region, really just trying to champion their bit of land, and I find that amazing.
Well, you can only hand prune, you can't do anything else, you have to hand prune them. And you have to do it right. I mean, you can't just hack them off any old how, because, you know, you won't do the fruit any good. Everything we do is in preparation for next year and the year after. Every year it comes back and starts again. I mean, that's the nature of farming. Must be the oldest pruner in town. It takes me personally to do the whole lot about 2 months. It's very peaceful, yeah, because usually you're on your own. It's very pleasant, it's just hard work. Start off by pruning, hopefully correctly. That's a good start for the crop. May, June probably. That's when the greenery, all of a sudden the greenery takes off and it just goes berserk in a matter of weeks. And if you stood still long enough, I think they'd strangle you. Yeah, but I suppose there's a degree of patience attached to it all, because it has to be, doesn't it? But it's just part of the year's cycle, and however long it takes is how long it takes. No good to be in a hurry. You can't hurry nature. Nature does everything in its own speed. So when it's good and ready, it'll do what it wants to do.
Well, I think everybody should have champagne for breakfast. I grew up in a slightly old-fashioned world when the Dorset farm workers spoke in Dorset language. I mean, you don't hear it very often anymore now. I might have a twang in my voice, but the old Dorset language, you wouldn't even identify some of the words they come out with. I always had a fancy for a vineyard. I'd always pick this little field out to put the vineyard in. And when I cut back on my workload, I had time to do things that perhaps I fancied doing rather than having to do. And so we got hooked up in it, and before I knew what happened, we planted 5,000 vines. And we haven't looked back since. We're very privileged to be born into a way of life that we can do, you know, and I feel quite privileged because, you know, I was born into farming and I've had opportunities to go farming on the back of that. I never went to college. I left school at 16 and started work. You know, I had no formal education as such. Didn't really want to go to college. Missed out on all the fun that most people had. It sounds very glamorous having a vineyard, but I can assure you it's not. I spent 2 months of the winter in January and February standing up in the cold pruning. Every single vine, I pruned 5,000 vines every year. Farmers, to me, like growing crops. You start with a seed, which you sow, and then you plant the seed in the best seed bed you can, and then basically nurture it until it grows into what you're hopefully going to finish up with. English wine is no longer the laughing stock of the wine trade. I've got Langhams who make my wine for me. They've got a specialist winemaker resident in their vineyard, and they take in my grapes and make my wine for me there. To make wine is another professional's job. The boys that are making the wine now, they're all clever, been to university, learnt the trade, travelled the world, made wine in various places throughout the world, and they're coming back to England and using their skills from travelling to make really very competitively good wine now.
So I'm Tommy Grimshaw and I'm the head winemaker here at Langham Wine Estate in Dorset. I'm not sure if we're all switched on and necessarily talented. I think probably luck comes into it quite a lot as well. Winemakers are a really mixed bag, to be honest. I think most of the time we all just want to have a good time. And most of the time winemakers are just pretty down to earth. I think the media and like social media and stuff always try to hype up a winemaker when they're talking about a producer. I think we kind of end up getting the spotlight probably put on the one focal person, and the winemaker's the obvious person. So that probably leads to us getting loads of stick from the vineyard managers, because especially the winemaking that we do, which, you know, people sort of say low intervention or whatever they want to call it. It's all about expressing the fruit quality. And without our whole vineyard team here at Langham and the likes of Colin Hawkins at D'Urberville growing amazing fruit, we wouldn't be able to make the wine that we do.
It's lovely fruit this year, we're really pleased with that. It's looking good, lovely big bunches. Not like eating grapes, which tend to have grapes twice the size. You can test the fruit if you want to. Sometimes I just squeeze the inside out. That's actually better than I thought.
The first time I met Colin must have been about 4.5 years ago. And I was just like, who's this old boy farmer? Like, what's he about? And Daniel was the winemaker at the time. He's like, no, honestly, it goes with amazing fruit. And it's like some of the best fruit we get into the winery. And then, yeah, the harvest came up and Dan was right.
Well, as I'm walking up through the crop now, I'm doing a crop inspection for health. I'm also doing what we call a green harvest, where if we got very green little grapes like that, they're not going to get ripe quick enough to make a decent wine. So we cut those off. They're just passengers now and they're never going to get ripe. I don't mind putting the old grapes on the ground because there's lots of wildlife about. Pheasants in particular love grapes. And I always say the grapes aren't ready till the pheasants turn up in the vineyard. And they come from miles around, and we get a congregation of 30 or 40 pheasants here
on a daily basis, picking up any odd grapes that we've got, and it's surprising how they'll jump up and take the lower ones if they get a chance. Some people say they're a nuisance, but I like to see them, so I'm quite happy. And then as I go, I just do a visual check on the fruit itself, check that they're nice and healthy. Leaf, look under the leaves, make sure there's nothing funny going on. You can have powdery mildew, downy mildew, all sorts of things waiting. One thing about farming is always something waiting to share what you're doing. Not always good.
He's a proper Dorset farmer. I think that's the first thing you get, is that old school Dorset accent, and he loves telling stories and a little bit of banter, and is quite cheeky at times as well. So I do remember he's just always keen to tell stories and have a laugh, and he always has a smile on his face, and he seems to grow amazing fruit as well, completely untrained. So the best fruit that we see every year, it comes from him. He's somebody who's taken his farming experience and brought it into what he does in the vineyard. And yes, there's lots of overlaps, but growing various different other arable crops or livestock is very different to trying to train a vine. Something that's going to be in the ground for 30, 50, even more years. He's out there, and he's the driving force behind it.
We have a collection of old tractors, or just a few, which I've hoarded over the years. Yeah, I'm a hoarder. I hoard things. So my wife's convinced I had a hiding when I was young for throwing something away. When we planted the vineyard, we decided that we'd plant the rows wide enough so that we could make use of the old tractors and give them a little job to do, which is what we're doing. This one does the mowing, there's another one does a bit of spraying, and another one does something else, whatever one's doing.
By planting them wider, we don't create quite such a microclimate for disease between the rows, so our crop does tend to be a lot healthier than a lot of people's.
They're a lovely crop, like we're doing now, just driving around the vineyard, looking at the fruit, checking it, and that is, to me as a farmer and a grower, that's probably my highlight. It gives you a bit of joy then when you know you've got it right that way.
The great thing about the English wine industry and producers, especially in the West Country, is people seem to come from all sorts of walks of life. The English wine isn't something where it's gone from generation to generation yet. You maybe have a couple of second generation sort of families, but most of the time it's sort of first generation. People that are trying to diversify or move in from one career into another. I find in the Southwest, it's more just like humble farmers or people who've got like a 1 acre garden. They're like, oh, cool, well, let's try and plant some vines. And they don't necessarily have the money that they need to do it. So they have to be quite creative and inventive of how they're going to get around certain issues and certain problems. And people really, really graft hard.
So I know the grapes aren't quite right yet because the pheasants haven't turned up.
As I jokingly said yesterday, when the man from Del Monte says they're ready to go, you have to be ready to go. You have to pick your day, which hopefully is fine. You have to get your pickers organised. You have to have your slot at the winery so that when you've picked them, you can take them straight to the winery for them to start processing. You can't sort of pick them one day and deal with them sometime tomorrow.
It's always edgy time for me because everything has to happen. So and at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. If it's not organised properly, then it doesn't happen. Garden gnome posture. They come every year, so they all grumble about bad backs, and at our age we do, but they still keep coming. So, yeah, they've enjoyed it. Well, we don't do many jobs on a farm anymore that are sociable, because most farm work nowadays is you're on your own, you're away in a tractor or doing something, but you don't work with people anymore like we used to. So to get a field full of people just chattering and going. Love him, brothers.
This is my happy place.
They're a baby.
Yeah, I love this place. Absolutely love it. I go home at the end of the day and I can be absolutely shattered. But then I wake up next morning raring to go. You just walk in here and it's just calming, and you hear the birds singing, and it's just lovely.
And we tend to pick up through with one person, come back down again to sort of straighten up, and then probably swap and to pick up with somebody else to go back up again, so that you get a constant changeover of personnel talking to different people. So it's nice, yeah, no, we do. We have a real good catch-up session. Speed dating, yeah, something like that, yeah. You realise you're filming the two skilled operators of the team.
Skilled operators in the art of bullshit. Actually, you did slip up coming here to do the photography. You could have nipped down to the Dordogne and done it in the sun.
Oh, but you haven't got the same characters on board, so.
We pick by hand and not by a machine. There are grape harvesters now where you can have a machine to pick them, but they're quite rough on the grapes, and they're probably not really much good for this premium quality English sparkling wine.
We go through and we snip the bunches off, we pick into buckets, and then we strategically place trays up through, so you can tip about 3 bucketfuls of grapes into a tray, and then my hard-working team that do the heavy work, they pick all the crates up and put them on the trailer ready to distribute them wherever they're going.
Very right.
It's a nice sample.
They are no sample.
Lovely sample.
The rest I go tomorrow.
Is there any more whiskey?
Well, we've handed over now to the winemaker. I mean, I'm the wine grower, or grape grower. I've handed over to a skilled man to make the grapes into wine.
Colin's not too far from us, so he brings his fruit over in the back of his trailer. First thing we have to do is we have to check the quality of the fruit. You can always rely Colin's going to bring good stuff, but we just need to make certain decisions based on how good the quality is. And we'll weigh the fruit so we know how much we've got.
I reckon we're looking at 476. No!
And we basically take an 18 kilo crate at a time, where it's hand loaded into the top of a big drum. It's like a horizontal drum, and that's our press. So we load it all in by hand, which is good fun. It's a good little workout. And basically the press has a big bag inside it. It'll push from one side, it'll inflate and push the fruit up against the other side of the drum. And the other side's got loads of little slits in it. So as the grapes are pushed against the drum, the berries are split and the juice is forced out of the little slits. And that's basically how we press. We're not standing on them anymore. Unless the press breaks, then maybe we'll go for that. And basically we just get loads of juice collecting into this tray at the bottom. And we pump it into one of these tanks behind us.
And this is when a winemaker produces his magic, because every winemaker will have a different idea of how he wants to continue with the crop and then finish it. This is when the flare comes out, yeah.
I'm going to try and condense a 3-year process here into like the smallest amount that I can. But it's basically going to be my life's work. So if you get cloudy apple juice from any shop, you just chuck it into the fridge, and it settles, we get the sediment at the bottom. Grape juice does exactly the same thing. So we just leave it for 24 to 48 hours. We don't need to refrigerate it. It's cold enough in October in England. And all the sediment just settles to the bottom of the tank. And then we just have this beautiful clear grape juice on top. And our idea at Langham is we're low intervention is probably the buzzword that people would say. So we don't filter any of our wine, and there's no fining agents, no enzymes or anything at this stage. And if the fruit quality is good enough, there'll be no sulfur either. And then we'll pump our nice clean grape juice to a mixture of oak barrels and maybe some will stay in stainless steel tanks. And what we'll end up then with is a load of different versions of exactly the same juice. And most people there would add a lab-grown yeast, but here at Langham we don't inoculate at all. So it's just wild indigenous yeast. So the yeast that was being in Colin's vineyard and on his fruit will be transported here, and that's what's going to be fermenting his wine. And that's going to make Colin's wine really unique. So we leave it, and we work sort of to the seasons here. As we're in an uninsulated barn, you can hear birds, you can hear anything going by, rain falls through the ceiling. So we really have to work with the seasons. So the ferments will probably start after a few days, and it'll get to December and they'll stop, they'll go dormant. And now it's starting to warm up again, we're seeing things finish off. So the fermentation takes about 9 months, and we end up with a still white wine. So during the first fermentation, all the CO2, we just allow it to escape into the winery, which can be quite dangerous at harvest because you get a winery full of CO2, which is key because you need it to be released, so you end up with a still wine. Then we would look at our blends at this time of year. So we need to taste all the barrels, the tanks. Once we've kind of worked out what tastes like what, how we're going to blend the wine together, we do so in a bigger tank, like the big one behind me. And we add more yeast, this time it's from a lab, and some sugar. And the more sugar you add, the higher the final pressure is going to be. So we add slightly lower than most people in terms of sugar, and we bottle it whilst it's fermenting for a second time. But crucially, when we bottle it during the second ferment, we put a beer bottle crown cap on top. So that CO2 that was escaping into the winery, it won't do so in the bottle. It's trapped inside the bottle and it dissolves back into the wine. We end up with sparkling wine. We don't have to leave that in the bottle for 2 to 3 years. With Colin's wine, it's 3 to 4 years. And the yeast cells start to break apart. It's a process called autolysis. And as the yeast cells start to break apart, they're releasing a sort of brioche, toasty, sort of bready profile to the wine, also helping to soften the acidity and adds a real nice weight to the mid palate. And that's kind of something that's synonymous with champagne and some of the best sparkling wines in the world. And then finally, we can basically take a horizontal bottle, we slowly invert it over a week till it's upside down, and all of your yeast, dead yeast, which we call lees, is in the bottleneck. We then bring the bottle upright, and there's always an air bubble in the bottle, and as the air starts to move towards the yeast, because it's always trying to find the highest point. So as it hits the yeast, we pop the cap off. It's about 5 bar pressure inside the bottle. That fires the yeast out and the crown cap, and a thumb comes over the bottle and stops us losing any wine. Then we add a small amount of dosage, which is basically like seasoning. If you last bit of salt, pepper, soy, hot sauce, whatever you're seasoning your food with at the end of cooking. We do the same with our wine, but it's just a small amount of wine and sugar, just to balance everything. You don't want to taste it, but it's just to lift the profile of everything. Cork goes in, and then the wire cage, and then we leave it for a further 6 months to go through something called the Maillard reaction, which is kind of like if you take bread dough, you put it in the oven, and that fresh baked bread, the aroma you get from that. So the amino acids and sugar in the bread reacting with the heat, and it's releasing this aroma. The same thing's happening in the wine, but it's not being cooked, but the acidity of the wine is triggering the same reaction. With heat, it's instant in your bread, but with the wine, it takes about 6 months. So we leave it a further 6 months just because it makes the wine better. And then we can label it, put the foil on, put it in a box, and then, it's ready to go. So, yeah. I literally don't know where the last cab's gone.
Jonathan obviously approached him when we had wine to sell. There is a connection because his parents live right next to the vineyard, and we sort of talked to them first, and they said, well, perhaps Jonathan would like to sell some. Went to see him, he was very keen. He said, how many people have got a vineyard within a mile of their shop?
My name is Jonathan Charles. I am the owner of the Dorset Wine Company. I've known Colin since before the vineyard went in, since it was pasture land. I do remember him sort of laying the seeds of us being his sort of the first retailer he wanted to sell his wine, and that was very exciting. We've got some fantastic producers on our doorstep who are doing great things, and so it really makes sense to sort of champion those. And this lovely little triangle between Colin's vineyard and Langham winemaking and us, it sort of it works very well.
We each know our trade. We all need each other, because you do need the farmer to grow the crop. You do need the winemaker to make the wine, and you need the retailer to retail it. One single person would struggle to do all three, which is probably where I fall down, because I try and do all three and I'm not really doing it very well. But I do grow some good grapes. So.
All of our wines that we sell represent the area in which they come from, the grapes in which they're grown with, and also the people that produce them and make them. We like to sort of focus on small producers who have a very sort of hands-on approach to winemaking. And so our ethos is really to support those producers and to tell their story through their wines. Yes, there's an increasing interest in English sparkling wines, that's undeniable. It's partly just simply because the quality gets better and better with every year. And also the recognition that now English sparkling wine is sort of very much a style of its own rather than just an alternative to champagne. What I really love about the D'Urberville wines at Colin's, his grapes, they're so ripe and fresh, and the resulting wines have a real sort of vitality and zestiness and life to them. I think they're wonderfully easy drinking. They're really finely balanced, and I think his lovely vineyard site is so well protected that he has such sort of healthy grapes.
Choosing a vineyard site is the most important thing you can do. Vines will be in the ground for 50 plus years, so choosing your right site is the most important thing you can do when you're thinking about winemaking.
You know, I didn't listen to anybody, I just went on and did it. And most people planting a vineyard would take professional advice first and then choose the site after that. But I had my site. I'd made up my mind that's where I wanted to be.
We're really lucky here in Dorset, and you know, especially where we are, sort of mid-Dorset. We've got the Paris Basin, which is a load of chalk ridges basically. They go from Champagne, they come under the channel, sort of in the lot in the southeast, but then we're sort of on that final band of that Paris Basin here. We've also got Portland Bill, not too far, and that's Portlandian limestone, which comes up our way, and Kimmeridge Bay. So that's Kimmeridge and clay, which is coming into play as well. If you're talking to wine folk about places like Chablis and Champagne, they'll be like, oh, the Kimmeridge and Ridge, like, it's one of the most famous soil structures in the world. And it's like, well, if you speak to most Dorset folk, it's like, well, yeah, it's Kimmeridge down the road. And then as you get further towards Bridport, you get more alluvial soils as well. So we've got like sort of the alluvial, the chalk and the clay, and that just makes up this amazing mix of different soil structures.
I can think of 3 vineyards within a 10-mile radius of where we are today. And the grapes that they produce and the wines that are produced all have very different characters just because of their situation.
And it's suited me very well. I didn't get professional advice. I just did it because I fancied doing it. But they tell me it was a good choice. So. To me, they're a thing of beauty as such. I mean, any crop that I grow, I enjoy growing because I like to see them go through the stages of growth and getting to harvest. So the grapes are no different. I mean, if you didn't do all the work, you could go and look and see what's happening and still appreciate the different stages that they go through and enjoy it. Yeah, I think if you need to enjoy what you do. It's very important.
The one thing that is important is the people and the amount of work that goes into producing a bottle of sparkling wine. I would love people just to fully understand what's involved and the people involved as well. And I think for English producers and Dorset producers, the benefit is that they're of a size where they can really get to grips and explain that to people. It was only during lockdown that sort of people started coming in and saying how much they'd enjoyed discovering Colin's Vineyard, because no one could go anywhere, so they were walking down the hill and across the road, and then all of a sudden they'd find Colin in the vineyard working away, and everyone was very proud to sort of say that they'd met the great grower in the vineyard. Yeah, I think it should always be about the people, I think.
I really just want people to know that there is an exciting wine industry, on their doorstep. I think wine has always grown in the most beautiful parts of the world, and I think here in Dorset follows that track. And I just think most people don't realise that. And as an industry that's growing, there's going to be so many opportunities. We always just try and have a bit of fun. A message that I always just try to get through to people is that you can get involved in the wine industry quite easily. If people just send me a message or walk in and say, hey, I'm interested in wine, can I know more? We'll share it. I love sharing what I do because most people aren't aware of it. And the more people we can get in from all walks of life, the more interesting the industry becomes. And with a more interesting industry, we're only going to make more interesting and better wines.
Brain surgery did cross my mind at one time. No, I couldn't do anything else.
Well, I've had a wonderful life because I grew up with my career as a child. So I learnt my trade from the day I could breathe, sort of thing, starting. And then I tell people, they say, you're going to retire. I said, well, I've never started work, because every day I go out in the morning, I want to go out and I want to do what I'm doing. And I still do. Body's not quite so keen, but I still love what I do, and I would do it, hopefully, till the day I can't do it, sort of thing. So, yeah, do what you enjoy. I've had a lot of pleasure from my work. I don't get tired of it. It's a nice thing to be doing.